Okay, so welcome again to this Automations and Workflows webinar. We're so excited to have all of you live. My name is Corey Peterson. I'm one of the product adoption managers here at Captivate IQ, and I'll introduce myself in a little bit more detail later, but just a couple housekeeping items before we get started. This call will be recorded and posted later. So if you check back in a day or two on our Knowledge Center, then you should be able to see the recording there just in case you want to access this content again, or maybe share it with some colleagues who were double booked at this time. That's totally fine. But in addition to that, even though we know that we have these calls recorded for later, we do appreciate the live participation. So throughout this call, we will have a couple polls just to gather your feedback and collect some quick information from you. And we also want to hear your questions. So note that the chat bar is open if you just want to shout out what you're doing or answer some questions in the chat. That's great. And we do also have the QA box open as well. So we will take the occasional pause to look at the Q&A box to see what questions you have and answer them with the specialist on the call. So test that out if you want. Make sure that you know where the chat and the QA is. And then, of course, if there's anything of interest throughout this call, please connect with your CSMs so that we can help to actually incorporate some of the things that we'll be talking about today. But just a little bit about your host today. You only have one of me. We usually try to have a blend, but I know that I've been on these webinars quite a lot. So hopefully we're pretty familiar with each other. But just a little bit about me. My background is in training and technical enablement. So I've been doing that for quite a few years before coming over to Captivate. I've been with Captivate for about a year and a half now. And just some fun facts about me. I've kind of lived all over the US, but I'm in currently Idaho. So we've got a nice warm summer here, but very, very windy. So if you like the heat, but you want a little bit of a breeze to cool you off, maybe Idaho's for you. Who knows? But I'm also a big bookworm. I've been getting huge into books lately. Maybe it's because we've got a lull in all the TV shows right now. But if you have any book or TV recommendations, I'm all for it. Feel free to put it in the chat box. But we always like knowing a little bit about you. So go ahead and let us know where you're calling in from and what are you here for today. We've got a big group of registrants, so obviously something piqued our interest and we'd love to know what that is. So we'll keep an eye on the chat. We'll say hello to anyone who wants to say hi. But in addition to me, I guess before we move forward, we also have Blake on this call. He's also a product adoption manager, so he'll be helping to field the questions. But we also have Liam on this call as well, also from Captivate. He works on the product side, helped me a lot with getting the integrations portion set up. So again, you've got specialists on the call. Feel free to pose your questions as you have them. Oh, and also a fellow bookworm. So good to know. Hey, but what we can expect to talk about today, we're going to first highlight the value of automations and workflows. You've probably noticed that we have a lot of automation and workflow related features on our roadmap. We've been doing a big push on this. So this will just help us understand the why behind this strategy. So we'll start there. And then once we understand the why, we'll get into our current and upcoming integration capabilities. Every single call that I've been on with a customer where I mention automations, the first thing that y'all want to know about is integrations. So we added that portion in here just for you guys so that you can understand what's out there and how to use it to help with some of those automation options. And then after that, we will get into a list of our full automation and workflow features in Captivate and then demonstrate some of the top use cases for some of them. So keep an eye out for that. We will be having a live demo there. But getting started with the why of automations and integrations. So, just in case you haven't heard about our State of Incentive Compensation report, we recently did a survey of over 200 incentive compensation leaders all over North America and mostly from enterprise companies. Now, this was a mix of Captivate users and non Captivate users. So, we weren't just interviewing our own group. We really tried to get a mixed bag there to really get a feel for what's going on in the industry and what some of your goals and priorities are. And there's a lot of really great information in this report. You can access it now at captivateiq.com/resources. So if you want to see the full list of our findings, you can access the report there. But really today we're going to focus on the tactical trap. And what I mean by that is that trap of having the majority of what you're doing in your day-to-day being those administrative tasks, the tactical tasks, that actually you're clicking the button to process the payouts, you're manually QAing your errors. So all of those I'd consider as those tactical items. We want to help you shift to more of a strategic, to open you up for strategic tasks, help you become a growth driver, and all of those great things. But what we found with the tactical trap as part of our report is only 25% of customers interviewed feel like they have the right split between tactical and strategic. Now, I'd say that that's pretty low. We'd want you guys to feel more comfortable with your workflow, with your processes, and really feel like you have that Goldilocks zone of tactical versus strategic. So we're going to see if we can try to get this number up and help you with an idea of how to get there. Because about 42% of customers want to be more strategic. So they want to free up some time, but maybe you just don't know how. Maybe there's some tasks that you aren't sure if they can be automated or made more efficient. So again, we'll focus on how to free up some of this space here today. But note that that doesn't mean that you have to be 100% automated. We don't expect that. We'll talk about the ideal split a little bit later. So just know that you don't have to be fully automated. But again, as we go throughout this webinar, I challenge you guys to keep an eye out for what we're talking about and think critically about, okay, is this feature that we're talking about something that takes a lot of time out of my day? Is it something that if I did automate this process, what would it free me up for? What would I be able to do in the time that I no longer have to focus on this thing? So don't worry, we don't expect everything to be for you, but as we go throughout, again, start to think critically, let us know how you feel. But getting started with integrations, again, when we bring up automations, this is the number one question that comes to mind in my client calls. So we'll just start a little bit with integrations 101. So first off, what are integrations? These are what we know and love as our ability to bring in data from outside business sources into Captivate IQ to help you do what you need to do to process your calculations, run your reports, and all of that good stuff. And you've probably heard the adage before of trash in, trash out. But I want to flip that on its head and focus more on rich in, robust out. So the richer the data is that you bring into Captivate IQ, the more that you're able to utilize your integrations to bring in maybe more than you need. The more that we're able to do that to run your commissions logic, create great reports, and even flow the data through Captivate IQ to get it ready for its next step. So utilizing integrations is a great way to help with that rich in, robust out. And we currently have two types of data connectors with Captivate IQ. We have what we call native connectors, and these are pretty self-service, so they can be set up by you, owned and modified completely by yourself without ever needing to go through us to make any updates. So just an idea of what this looks like. Salesforce is an example of one of our native connectors. You can see here that the process of Adding in additional objects, if you ever want to bring in more data, is pretty simple. It does require some minimal query building skills. But overall, we did try to make that UI as user-friendly as possible so that, again, you can handle that yourself without needing to go through us to take care of that. So native connectors are a great option for having a dynamic data process. But we do understand that like in the age of tech, we have a lot of tech, we have a lot of places that we're storing our data. And even with the ones that we don't have native integrations with, we still want to provide you options for. So that's where managed connectors really come into play, is they do open it up for more source connections as possible. But because it does require a little bit more intensive coding, it does require assistance from our professional services teams to manage. We want to help have a great user experience. So again, because of the level of expertise involved to update the items and these managed connectors, we'll just take care of that for you. But when you do add on a managed connector, it does come with a bucket of hours so that you can reach out to our teams and receive that assistance as your business grows and your data needs change. But just an idea of what those connectors are. Here is our current list of our available self-service and managed connectors. So if you see something on the list that you know that you have data stored in there that could be useful to bring into Captivate IQ, go ahead and talk to your CSM and we can look at if maybe a connector would be the right option for you. These are really great, again, to help with that rich in, robust out. But now that we have that integrations 101 out of the way, we want to understand how you can use integration. So how are other customers doing it and how do our data connectors interact with Captivate IQ? So first and foremost, you can set up integrations to pull directly to your data workbooks. This connects a source system to Captivate IQ to either have on a manual sync schedule or even an automated schedule. So we most often see this with like opportunity level information. Maybe if you store like invoice information for like held and release commissions, we can hold that invoice information as well. But really that is just all up to you. Those are the top two use cases that I personally see. But really the draw here is that if you set up that connector, you can have your data as live time as you'd like it to be. And since our preview statements, our what if calculators, a lot of those payee interactive tools are based directly on the data workbooks, the more live that you have it, the more live that your reps are able to interact with the data in their systems and anticipate their commission. So this is a great one to have, again, and you can also automate that data sync as well so that you don't even have to worry about it. You set it up once and forget about it. But in addition to data workbooks, we also have integrations that connect with your payee lifecycle management and SCIM process. So what this looks like is we can help with the automated provisioning and deprovisioning of employees in Captivate IQ. So as you hire new reps and add them to the Captivate IQ tile in your SSO provider, it'll automatically create that user and that employee ID within Captivate IQ so that you don't have to add that employee in a dozen different places. Just let us lean on some of the work that you're already doing with your SSO provider. That's a great thing to consider. We'll touch on that a little bit later as well. But if you have some data connector options that don't have like a native solution built out in Captivate IQ, that's why we have our Open API. You can think about the Open API as kind of the Swiss Army knife of integration solutions with Captivate. So this just provides you with more flexibility to build out some of the more custom calls. Again, if we don't have an immediate solution for that in Captivate. So if you want more information about the Open API, what it can do, you can find that at developers.captivateiq.com. This provides you with a list of endpoints that you can use to make calls to either push data in or export it back out. So you can see, like, if you want to add users, update hierarchies, or even push reports out of the system, you can take a look at our endpoints list to see if we accommodate that. But we also have a list of pre-built recipes of some of the more common use cases. So that way, if you don't want to completely get started from scratch, you don't have to. We'll have some recipes to lean on so that you can build out those things in a quicker manner. But just note that with the Open API, this does require some coding knowledge as well. So typically we see people bring in their dev teams, their IT teams. But if you have the resources for that and the use case and the need for it, just know that that is always available. But quick pause, I don't see any questions so far. But again, remember, if you have any questions or feedback as we go throughout, we'll be watching. But that is all what is currently available now, but we know that there's a lot of solutions that you guys are asking for, and we want to help provide that to you. So you're going to get a sneak peek of what's to come with some of these integration options. So first on the list coming up pretty soon, estimated July, is we will have the ability to have an advanced sync scheduling option. I had to say that slowly. Advanced sync scheduling. So we currently have the ability for you to automate your sync schedules. We've already talked about that. But this will expand on that feature by allowing you to select a day of the month that you'd like to sync on. So currently, right now, you can select a day of the week, but not necessarily a day of the month. Whereas with this, if you say that I want my data to sync a couple days before I actually, or like the day that I process commissions X days before payroll, then you can set up those specific days, select your time, so that way, again, you can just set that schedule, forget about it, and know that when you log on the 3rd around 8 p.m., that your data will be up to date, which is pretty great. And know that, again, that's estimated July, but keep an eye on the newsletter, on our website, on your CSM roadmap for when this actually becomes available. The next two will follow shortly thereafter. We've got also in Q3 a worksheet to worksheet connector, which I know I'm personally very excited for. So what this will do is it will allow you to have data syncs from one part of the app to other sections within Captivate IQ. So for example, if you store like hierarchy level information in a worksheet, then you can have that data connector into the worksheet be automated if you'd like it to be, but then have that worksheet push that information to your hierarchy section in Captivate. So just inter-app communication, and more details will be available as this gets closer to GA. Again, very excited for that one. It should help solve for a lot of the feedback that we're hearing right now. And then also coming in Q4, so a little bit at the end of the year, the highly anticipated bi-directional data syncs. Now, show of like thumbs ups or hands, give us a shout out in the chat if you are on the wait list for this. We know we have a lot of people really excited for the bi-directional sync. As of right now, we're really good at allowing data to come into Captivate, but we're hearing from you guys that you also want the ability to push it back out. So what we're working on in the initial phase, what you can expect in Q4, is the ability to send data to your data warehouses and your reporting tools. So that will be phase 1. We know that there's a lot of use cases that you guys are excited about, such as the ability to push data, like let's say back to Salesforce and update a field if it's been corrected in Captivate. So know that all of that is on our roadmap. It is top of mind. But again, this initial phase will mostly be for the data warehouse and reporting tools, and we'll expand on that as we continue with our feature development. So, but this is where our first poll is going to come into play. We want to hear what your requirements are, what you'd hope to see when it comes to integration. So I will launch this first poll. You should see a new pop-up window appear on the screen. We'll give you guys about a minute to complete that. Love it. I think this is the fastest that I've ever seen responses come through. So, Liam, hopefully we're getting some good information. Okay, we've got about 15 more seconds, about 6 people left. Looks like we're seeing a lot of interest in the ability to push to payroll. Okay, yep, push to data warehouse reporting tool. Yeah, so everybody who said data warehouse reporting tool, stay tuned, Q4. All right. Go ahead. If you are typing out a short answer, I'll give you about 3 seconds to wrap that up. I don't want to cut you off if you haven't submitted. Okay, saw a couple last minute ones come through. Perfect. All right, poll is closed. Thank you guys so much for your feedback. We will make sure to share that with the appropriate teams. Yep, it looks like there's a lot of excitement for the data warehouse and reporting tools and a high need for payroll as well. So we'll see what we can do. But thank you so much. That wraps up the integration section. Now we will focus on automations and workflows and how you can make Captivate IQ work for you and not the other way around. So just going back to the report real quickly, this is one of the graphics that you can see in that incentive compensation, the state of ICM report. So of the 200 customers that we interviewed, here's just a bunch of tasks that could be manual or automated in different systems. And everything that you see in orange are items that clients are taking care of manually, either by themselves or someone else on their team, while everything in green is what is currently being automated. So if you're wanting to see just that, a slice across the board of what is the industry currently doing, it looks like the top items that are being automated right now are the actual processing of commission payouts, as well as like making compensation adjustments and like inquiries, reviews and approvals, as well as like troubleshooting errors. Now, a lot of this we actually have current solutions for. A few of them are in the works, but all of them are top of mind for us. But again, this is just what your peers are currently doing. And again, note that this doesn't have to be a 100% automated like automation process. We understand that tactical tasks are going to exist. They're going to be part of your day-to-day. But if you want to automate some more, we're going to see if we can help this number grow a little bit through our demos today. But talking about the ideal split, so from the customers or from the leaders that we surveyed, we actually found that the ideal split of strategic to tactical tasks is about 50-50. So about 50% of that time spent on like the administrative side of things, 50% freeing you up for some of those more strategic conversations. So if you don't feel like you are currently at 50-50, if you feel like you'd like to be more strategic, here's just a list of our current automation and workflow options that could be spent or could help free up some of your time. So just taking a quick skim, I'll highlight a few, but I'd love to hear from you guys. What are you already using on these lists? And what do you feel like the value add is for you? Let's hear from each other. So go ahead, put in the chat box. I'll wait maybe 30, 45 seconds for us to type out those chats. Again, what on the list are you currently using? And what do you feel like is the value add for you? Okay, first chat. Perfect. Hey, Molly says plan management. Yes. Ooh, advanced reporting exports. Yes. See a big need for that. Ooh, the data syncs. Yep, pulling into the data workbooks. I think everybody should be on data syncs. If you have a data connector, that's just my opinion. Yes, love the data syncs, the publish workflows. Love it. Ooh, we're in the initial implementation phase now. Okay, so Advantage, TBD. We see tremendous opportunity to enhance the inquiry workflows. Oh, yes, Jamie, we're going to take a look at inquiries. So I might pick on you a little bit for some examples. Jessica, data workbook syncs with added worksheets to pull in automatic adjustments. Jessica, you are speaking my language. I love that. Oh, 1 second.
Async, and then we will splice this together with the webinar recording. So you'll be able to, oh, never mind. Corey's jumping back in. All right, Corey, I'll turn it back over to you. I'll drop share.
Thank you. I'm mortified. Sorry, everyone, but thank you for your patience and your great chats. um, hey, let me go back to sharing my screen. I'll move that out of the way. Perfect. Cool, cool. Well, Blake, were there any like chats or great feedback that I missed? I think I saw a lot of great chats about like what people are currently using. Yeah, probably didn't miss much. Okay, but yeah, thank you for sharing everything that you guys are currently utilizing. It looks like we've got a lot of people on our data syncs. We've got a few people with our advanced reporting exports as well. So just to kind of highlight some of these automation and workflow options that we have. I know that we've already talked about pay lifecycle management, and that will be one of our demos. So we'll take a look at how you can utilize your SCIM and SSO provider to automate the creation and deactivating of employees as they come on to your company and leave. We'll also take a look at this scheduled payout processing, especially since if we look at this last slide, that is the number one thing that clients are automating right now. So we'll take a look at that as just a easy, quick win for us. Just a quick call out about the advanced reporting exports, because I did see that in the chats. This is something, this is a great example of something that you would set up with our open API. So where you would create your advanced report model, let's say that you have a Monday report that you send out to all of your sales leaders. You can have that report built out, set up that schedule of when you'd like it to be processed. And then as part of the open API, we would actually have that ready to go for you so that it is not only a process on a set schedule, but actually pushed out and exported as well. So a lot of great features when it comes to workflows. These will still require some tactical or manual tasks, right? But they can help to put some of the processes that you already have in place in more of an automated fashion. So I think one of you had mentioned that you're very excited for inquiry types. This is just a great example of how you can have different inquiry types set up so that when a rep submits an inquiry of a specific theme, it can get routed to the appropriate parties to approve that request and handle responding to it. So a lot of really great ones in here, everything in purple we will actually be demoing. But note that we do have a lot of really exciting things in this coming soon as well. So again, if we look back at this graphic, I think the number two, well, like tied for second or third, a top thing that people are wanting to automate is the troubleshooting of errors and inaccuracies. So a couple ways that we're planning on handling that. We'll have payout workflows on the docket so that that way you can set trigger conditions where if you process a payout, let's say over $5,000 for a specific rep, you can maybe have that go to a specific team to investigate further to see if that looks right, or maybe the rep is getting credit for some things that is for like a next month or something that we can go about fixing. But again, should help you quickly catch some of those inaccuracies. And then with payout error tracing, this will be a feature that when there is an error in your commission plans, instead of you needing to do the data tracing yourself, this will just be a smart feature that lets you know where the source of that error is, takes you directly there to help that error resolution process be much faster. So a lot of really exciting things on the docket. Stay tuned for our newsletter. I believe that the CSM still cover the roadmap with you guys in your monthly syncs. So keep an eye out on our coming soon. We've got a lot of really great ones on the pipeline. But going into the demos, we will just do quick overviews of some of those top use cases for automations and workflows. So getting started with payee lifecycle management. And this is a great one. Again, if you don't want to have to manually, oh, there it goes. If you don't want to have to manually add new reps as they come onto the system or deactivate them yourself, then payee lifecycle management can be great for you. One second. Please don't be slow again. Let me try something. There it is. It just took a little second. Guess my computer has to wake back up. That's fine. Okay, resuming the share. Thank you all for your patience. Okay, so with payee lifecycle management, this one does work, as mentioned, with your SCIM provider. So there is some setup that would need to be done on both sides, but we have an integration guide that walks you through that full process, which is really great. But just a couple key things to highlight is if you do utilize us for the automated provisioning, we do have you set some user defaults, just so that that way you can designate what the eligibilities are that you want all users to have access to, right? So that we'll just lean on these default settings as we create those users so that, again, you don't have to go back and make sure that everything is how you want it to be, which is really great. And then with the automated provisioning, we will just create that user profile for you. You also have the option to attach an employee ID with that as well, if you store the employee IDs within your SCIM provider. So here's just a few options here. Again, our integration guide should be a great step-by-step process to help you get started. And all of the deprovisioning settings would live in this automations tab, which again, when you remove an employee from the Captivate tile, or if they get deactivated with your SCIM, it'll just automatically deactivate that rep as well. And you can even set final process dates and employee license deactivation settings. So if maybe you say that we process payouts on like a month lag, then you can state that you want to wait to have that final process date and the deactivation happen until like a month after we technically like recognize them as inactive. So just some great settings to utilize there. If you want more, again, that step-by-step guide is just available right within the app. The next one that we're going to take a look at is that number one feature of scheduling your payout processing. This is one that is kind of a lesser known feature, but we've had it available for a while. So if this is something you're interested in, you can immediately set up after this call today. But if part of your tactical tasks that you don't really want to deal with anymore is the actual processing of payout commissions, then you can just go to this processing tab, and you probably already know that you can pay out in bulk, right? Like if I have a date that I want to pay out all of my plans for, you can do that in bulk here. But if you wanted to pre-schedule a set like processing for all of these dates, then I can just select this checkbox next to the name, and you'll see this schedule recurring option available in the bottom right. So with this, it'll ask me to actually set up my schedule. So I could say I want my payouts to process every month, every week, or even set up this custom schedule. So I could say repeat every single month on the 3rd of the month, if that's how I'm doing this. After I set my date, it'll just come to the start time. So when do you want this process to actually happen? We have a few suggested times up here based on some of the lower traffic periods in Captivate. But if these times don't work for you, you are welcome to select your own schedule, and we'll start this process in between 4 and 5 p.m. Once you have your time, it's really just a matter of selecting what month it is that we're looking at. So again, if I know that I process payouts on the 3rd of the following month, then I can say process for the previous month and have this all set up, ready to go. Maybe you still enable email notifications just so that it can be top of mind as soon as it's finished. Ooh, Tim asked a great question. Is there anything dynamic like adding this logic on the roadmap? If you don't mind elaborating a little bit on where else you'd like to see this logic or what else you'd like to see added to it, that'd be great. And then we can answer that question from there. Yeah, great question. Oh, about your last chat. Okay. I might have to go back through. We'll see. I only see the Zoom chats as of when I logged back in, so I apologize. But I'll come back to that when, for our pause for questions, because I do see a few in the QA as well. Okay, so that is, again, the first two, this one available now. It's really great. But I do want to make sure that we talk about inquiries as well, because this is one of our newer features. It was recently pushed to GA, and I want to talk about this with pretty much every client call that I'm on, is the ability to set up these review and approval workflows for specific inquiry types. So just opening it up to the group, what are some of the most common inquiry type questions that you receive from your reps? Ooh, and Jessica asked a great question. Yes, I'll come back to that when we take our pause for questions. Okay, Jamie says general how-tos, disputes, exception requests. Okay, let's use that as our example. Okay, so if I want to set up, opportunity missing from a statement, discrepancy on split, love it, love it. Okay, so yeah, with those use cases in mind, if you want to set up a specific inquiry type for that, so let's say that exception requests might go to one person, or maybe if you know that there's a discrepancy on split, you might want to bring in both managers just to take a look at that request and approve that everything's good to go before you actually make the change. With inquiry workflows, all of that can now be done within Captivate IQ so that you don't have to chase things down via Slack or email or anything like that. Just take care of everything in-house. So here you can see that I have a few inquiry types set up. I have just general deal level updates, but I do have this split request field as well. So if I wanted to try to create a new inquiry type, yes. Yes to the can we forward it? And I'm going to show you guys how to do that now. So if let's say I want to make this exception requests, and then I can maybe add a description. This will be visible to the reps when they're selecting the inquiry. So if you want to elaborate a little bit on like some examples of when to use this, that could be good. Along this process, you do have the option to remove the ability for payees to add their own recipients. So if you don't want your payees to like loop in people outside of the workflow, you can leave this unchecked, or I can leave this checked to give that option to them. You'll note that you also have the option to have custom form fields. So by default, you'll always have our default settings, you know, the subject, reference section, all of that. But if you know that you need additional information to process this inquiry, then I can add in these custom fields here. So maybe I say that I want to require that the rep provide the deal ID. Maybe I want to say if this is a split request, what should be that AE split percent, you know, and require just as much information again as you would need to actually solve this so that you don't have to chase down additional information. So adding in those custom fields and designating which should be required, which should be optional are also really great for that information collecting process. And then once you have your type and your fields, it's time to actually create that workflow. So from this workflow, by the default, it just says when the payee submits an inquiry, that's all there is to it. But if you click on this line, you can add in additional approvals and recipients as well. So if let's say for this exception request, I want to bring in, say, like the manager or a specific person, then I can auto assign this to the statement owner's manager, just so that that way they can take a look at this and say, yes, that's correct. This exception should be granted, proceed, or no, the rep maybe just didn't understand how these things are working, how they get the credits. You're good to close this ticket with no action, right? So, and you can add in as many layers as you need. So you can add approvals on approvals. You can add a group of people to this. So if you have like an admin team of 3 and sorry guys, I promise that'll be the last time. I'll wrap this up so that we don't have to deal with my internet anymore.
Hey Corey, just so you know, we've let people start leaving. So we're just gonna cut it to Q&A at the end here for a little bit, and we'll go from there.
All right, sounds good. Thanks for being a great a great co-host, Blake. Okay, so just looking at some of the questions then. Okay, thank you, Jessica. Okay, Rachel had a good one. Are there plans to choose what employees you want to process payouts for by period groups? So that is not part of our current, part of the current automations. It's like an all or nothing with a plan right now. But that is something that we can look into. So we'd be happy to forward that feedback. And then Jamie asked, are there plans to build roadmaps at the feature function level? For example, upcoming enhancements to the inquiry form customizations and workflow flexibility. Yes, absolutely. As we come out with features, we know that everybody has different use cases. Our ICM is not a one-size-fits-all approach. So if there are things that you'd like to see added to it, like for example, the custom field ability was not originally there when we launched the inquiry workflows. That was added later. So that's just one example of something that we've added on to a new feature. So yeah, if there's items that you'd like to see, feel free to message your CSM, message support, and we'd be happy to forward that to the appropriate teams. But it looks like that was everything in Q&A. Let's see. And Blake's answered. And I think that Blake actually got the rest of them. So thank you all so much for all of your questions, for participating and all of the engagement. We really appreciate it. This recording in full will be available on our Knowledge Center in, I said, like just a few days. Oh, and Tim had one last question. Are there any plans to add the ability to auto process the last unpublished period? Any plans to add the ability to auto process? So that is what the scheduled recurring payouts, well, if you have the scheduled recurring payouts, you can have it set to that. It just works in like last month, but if that's part of like a scheduled recurring thing that you have, it will just be the last unpublished period. But if you want more dynamic abilities with that, if you just want to communicate that to, I believe Jean is your CSM, just let us know the use case for that and like how often you're needing to do that. Like, is that a one-off or is that something that is more of like a recurring thing? Then again, we'd be happy to look into that option. But yeah, thank you all so much. I believe that if you follow up with your CSM on most things, they'll be able to get you connected to pretty much anything that we talked about today. So if there is anything of note that you'd like to implement now, everything that we saw in the demos is GA. So everything that we saw in the demos is something that you can immediately have set up. So just let us know what you're interested in. Thanks for being great sports, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday. Bye, all.